the last straw was we had a guy come and work on a vehicle for us. And he fixed the vehicle, and we had a young girl. She might have been like 17, 18. Her mom bought her this car. It was like a $5,000 car, not, anything, but it was like her first car. The car explodes. She calls me. I'm at the car lot. She calls me and she's like, Miss Africa, my car is really hot. And I'm like, pull over on the side and get out of the car. So I'm like on the phone with her. She gets out of the car. When she gets out of the car explodes.
Oh my God.
And it's fire. I mean, like it burns completely. So we're rushing up the highway. When we get there, I'm so like upset. And I told Monte, I said, God, we got to get out of this. Like, I can't do this anymore. We were already so in debt. My husband, at the time, I think for like a whole year, he was working at the car lot. He had a full-time job and a part-time job.
Because you had quit.
Because I had quit. So I think in a year he had 5 days where he did not go to the car lot or go to work. In an entire year, 365 days, he had 5 days off.
Hey, Ev.
Hey, Ish.
Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited. I think there are a lot of people that don't know your story or all like the intricacies of your story. So we're going to jump right on in there. Right in. Okay. So growing up, you had family members who struggled with their mental health. My first question for you is, I guess, how did that affect you? Like when you grew up and when you became an adult, did it ever scare you, or did you ever wonder if you would have those same struggles?
When you grow up in a house that has, that someone is challenged with, mental illness, your house is very unstable. And so what it did for me is I became the exact opposite of unstable. Like to the point where, like, if you walk into my house today, everything is in the same place that it's been for like the last 16 years. Like I don't like anything that seems like it's unstable. But because you never knew. Like I never knew what the day brought. I never knew what I was coming home to after school. And you're talking about, maybe fourth grade, third grade, coming home and your house is chaotic. It's a mess. You don't know where, your mom is. You don't know where, all of a sudden, she's gone. I mean, it was my mom, that really, that was her battle that she fought her whole life. And growing up in that, I became the steady one. Like it was my goal to not rock the boat, to be a people pleaser, because I felt like if I did something, I never wanted to trigger an episode. So I walked very gingerly, always trying to please, people, always trying to do really good in school, always trying to be that person that never did anything wrong. Not because I really wanted to be that great of a kid. I just did not want to trigger something that would have my house in an uproar. So I learned to kind of take on that. And then I learned how to sometimes mask some of those episodes. So I would go to school. You would never know what was going on in my home. I never, you wouldn't, because I was that good of a kid, but I was that good of a kid because I didn't want anybody asking any questions. I didn't want anybody, asking what was going on in my home. So you learn how to mask it. And I think I began to wear the mask really well.
So you would say that you were on like an emotional roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
You said so many things in those few statements that you made. Um, but here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you have now healed from being a people pleaser, or do you still struggle with that?
Ooh, still struggle. Still a struggle. I did it my whole life. You know, I think being a mom, I now see the tendencies of people pleasing in my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to break them from that. But it's something that I still, have to grapple with. Like, okay, am I doing this because it's what I'm called to do? Am I doing this because it's what I want to do? Or am I doing this because I want to please somebody? So I still struggle with that, 40 something years later. So I think that's kind of, a residue of growing up in that environment. Always wanted to please, never wanted to be the problem. That was my thing. I never wanted to be the problem. So I became the one that kind of made sure everything was going right.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still kind of that person too.
Mm-hmm. We're always the duo. Okay,
We are.
We're the duo.
We are.
With your sibling, because it was you and your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that potentially caused tension between the two of you? Because you said, like, you wanted to just kind of live up to that status quo. You didn't want to cause issues.
Mm-hmm.
If he was the one that was, like, potentially getting in trouble, or, like, did you feel almost like a second parent to him?
I did because a lot of times when, my mom was going through an episode, I was the one that made sure we ate. I was the one, because my dad might be working. I was the one that we would literally walk home from school. Like, kids don't walk home from school nowadays, but, I would walk home from school, picking him up from his class, making sure that he got something to eat. So I really did take on that role at a way too young age. I was like in 4th grade.
Yeah.
But one thing about my brother is that he was authentically himself. He never people pleased, ever. And so we were complete opposites. He was going to do what he wanted to do. He was going to say what he wanted to say. And I think in retrospect, I was a little jealous of that because he got to be himself, whereas I had to play the role. So.
And it kind of made you feel like you were pitted against him.
Mm-hmm. It did a lot of times.
You talked about your brother and you said he was.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit if you're comfortable?
Yeah, I am. My brother passed away 3 years ago. So it was just him and I. And he struggled a lot. He struggled with diabetes, and that was kind of, eventually what he succumbed to. But when he passed, one of the things that I think masking does is it separates you. It puts a barrier between you and the people that you really love, because you're never really authentically yourself. And I think I missed that with him, just being myself. I missed time enjoying him because I was so busy trying to make sure I was right and trying to correct him. And so I spent so many of our years being that person. And I remember at his funeral, he had all of these people come up, and they were just saying, man, your brother did this. He was so much fun. They talked about how generous he was, how fun-loving he was. And I remember mourning the fact that I didn't know that side of him. Yeah. Because I was so busy trying to be perfect myself and correcting him for not being perfect. And he never tried to be. So, yeah.
But yet they thought that he was perfect.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they had this, it was, they gave stories of like him going to visit people in jail and, being the first one there when they got out, giving them a ride, giving them a place to stay, buying food for them. Just giving people the clothes off of his back, literally. And he was so generous. And I guess I never allowed him to really be himself when he was with me, because he felt like I was always, trying to correct him. So, hindsight is 2020, and I think that has really, his death made me realize to give people grace, and so I'm trying to live in that a little bit more.
Did his death make you give yourself more grace?
You know what? It made me look in the mirror and really start to search to find out who I really was. And some of the stuff was ugly. Yeah. It was not pretty. I found out that I was putting on a facade, of always having it together. And I never really did. And so it's coming face to face, and it's okay. I think I'm starting to embrace it. It's okay to not have it together. It's okay to not be seen as the one that always gets it right. Yeah. And that is freeing.
I remember you told me, listen, you freed your girl. Okay?
Did I? What'd I say?
You told me. You was like, it might be some laundry on the couch at my house.
All the time.
But it's peaceful, okay? I decided I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to get an attitude if my house is not 100% clean all the time, because I'd rather live in peace than live in perfection. And that helped me.
That was good.
I blessed your girl. I think I put that last part together.
That was good.
But basically, you said that because you is wise. You is smart.
Yeah.
You is kind. You is important.
I am important.
You are important. With your parents, with that idea of perfectionism and trying to keep everything together, and you might have to dig deep for this question, okay? What would you say was your biggest rebellious decision? Because everybody has one. Like when you're trying to be perfect and you're trying to do all those things, you're like, there's something inside of you that wants to rebel because you don't feel authentic.
Yeah. Mary and Monte.
Okay. Brother Monte,
which was the best, one of the best decisions.
Yeah.
But, with marrying him, I met him on the internet.
Back before,
this is before, we talking about 16, 17 years ago.
When that was taboo.
When it was taboo.
Yeah.
So I met him on the internet.
Harmony. eHarmony.
Baby, no, it was blacksingles.com.
Blacksingles.com. She got her a good man off of blacksingles.com. I don't know if it exists no more, but you can try it.
I doubt it. Okay. I doubt it. But yeah, so meeting my husband really and deciding, okay, no, I'm really into him. He makes me happy. He makes me laugh. It's not, he's a great guy, but he was all the way in Mississippi. I was in Florida at the time. We were traveling back and forth. Honestly, when we got married, we did not know each other that well. But I'm taking this big leap.
And your parents was like,
yeah, my dad. No. My dad was like, Monte. When Monte asked my dad, can he marry me? My dad was like, so soon, guy. He was not ready.
Because your dad's Ethiopian.
Yes, he is Ethiopian, and so. But I think that was probably the biggest thing that I did. I'm like, no, this guy he's the one, and it didn't. The move, not him necessarily, just him, but the whole package, meeting him online, moving to Mississippi. I didn't know anybody there.
Because he already had all the children.
Yeah, he had a whole family. I walked into, a family that was already there, and
but he wasn't married. Okay, no. Let's put that out there. Yeah. No, your husband is not somebody else's husband.
That's true. No,
okay.
No, he was not nobody else's husband. He was waiting on me.
He was waiting on you.
But I walked into that, and I did it because I'm like, I fell in love, and and I did that for me. It wasn't to please anybody. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've done. And
What
it was
was
such a good decision.
what was your parents' biggest grievance with?
I think the biggest thing was my dad was like, you don't know him.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, and by the time we got married, we were together for a year, but the entire time that we dated, he was in Mississippi and I was in Florida. So we never lived we did not live in the same city or state until after I was Mrs. Edwards.
Mm.
So our dating time was like when we got to see each other, when we would visit, but like that every day hanging out, going, you know, getting to know each other, we didn't have that. Now, we spent a lot of time on the phone, you know, but that was it. So my dad was like, you really don't know him like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Like your daddy was like, he is Mr. Smooth Operator on the
yeah,
phone.
he really
but
was.
you
He was like, he
don't.
came in there with his smile and this and that. And so that was his biggest thing, was just
Yeah.
that, yeah, you really don't know him. And the truth was, we didn't know each other that well.
Yeah.
You know, we had to get through some hurdles. So, baby,
All the hills and the valleys and
all
the
the
mountains
hills, all of it. We went through all of it.
and the rivers and the oceans.
Went through it all. Went through it all.
So, because y'all have been married a while now.
We have.
Yeah. I remember when you first started coming around and just kind of listening to your testimony, it's starting to make sense that the whole time the Lord was trying to kind of tell you, like, you're not perfect and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because in your weakness, like, my strength is made perfect.
Absolutely.
And I remember when you first started coming, you had been given a diagnosis that you would not be able to have children.
Mm-hmm.
So tell people a little bit about that.
So right before, I met this great guy, decided I'm marrying him. He's so chocolatey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm marrying him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to have his babies. Like,
Yeah.
that's the guy. Right before we got married, I was diagnosed with endometriosis.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, not to go into it, but it's a disease that basically it makes you infertile. Like, so I go through 2 surgical procedures right before we get married. Like my last one was like maybe 4 weeks before my wedding.
And you were how old at that time?
I was 30. I was 30. So, you know, it's not like I got married real young, not like I had a lot of time to, be fertile and have babies, because I got married at 30. So after that, of course I'm married. I'm thinking my husband, I have children that, I didn't birth. So, I know nothing's wrong with my husband because we have children. Mm-hmm. It's just that I haven't carried any. So a year goes by, I'm not pregnant. Another year goes by. I thought the surgery fixed everything. It didn't. So then I go to a fertility specialist. And I remember coming back we looked at in vitro. And at the time, my insurance didn't cover it. And I wanted a baby so bad. And it was like $25,000, something like that, which was a lot back then. It was like $25,000 that we had to come out of pocket. And it just wasn't, it was overwhelming. And if you've ever dealt with infertility, it's a crazy roller coaster of emotions because every month you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Like every month you're disappointed. So you go on this high and low every month. And so after coming back from there, I just remember being like, it's okay if I don't have kids. I'm ready to get off the roller coaster.
Yeah.
And so I had just kind of decided, hey, I have children. My husband has children already. I'm just going to be a really great stepmom, and that's going to be how I mother. And so I had just decided that was going to be it. But I remember my mother-in-law, she told me about the story about my husband, Monte, because I was distraught. I was crying, and she was like, "You're married to a miracle." And she talked about how before Monte, she lost a baby. And she said she went and she prayed for Monte. And the same way that she lost her first baby started happening with Monte, and he was born a preemie. And she said, I prayed for him, and you're married to a miracle, so I'm gonna pray with you. And she did, she did. And so, God blessed my womb, and I've had 3 children since then.
Three.
3.
And done.
Done. My quiver is full.
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 Yeah. That's beautiful. I got chills all over.
Yeah.
So with your children, I know that you said that you tried to create an environment so that they don't have to go through what you went through growing up. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you've put in place? Because you're a homeschool mom now, so they're with you 25/8. All the time. Like, they don't even go to school. And I know how overwhelming that can be. Mm-hmm. And so what are some of the things that you've kind of put in place to protect them?
I think the one thing that I missed was consistency and open affection. My parents were good. And even growing up, one of the things that I began to appreciate about my mom is, like, I could not imagine fighting battles in my mind every day, mm-hmm. and waking up and having to raise kids and having to feed them and having to work. And to know that my mom, now that I know the pressures of marriage, I know the pressures of motherhood, I know, the things that I struggle with every day, and for her to have a battle going on mentally and still try to be there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't all bad. It just wasn't, it just was what it was. But I so appreciate the fact that she fought through, and that she never gave up on us. Yeah. So.
And she went and she got help.
She got help. She took her medicine. Mm-hmm. Baby, take your medicine.
Yeah.
So and she did. And, I'm so thankful that even though she had that, I know not everybody has that story. Yeah. 'Cause today, me and my mom are extremely close.
She's so sweet.
She's super sweet. She's the most giving, most generous person. But she had to fight for that life. Yeah. And so she's absolutely the strongest woman I know. 'Cause I don't know if I could do it, if I could have done that.
With your family now, mm-hmm. I know that you said that your brother has gone on to be with the Lord, mm-hmm. and you still have your mom and your dad here. I know that's a struggle. Do you sometimes now feel like an only child?
I think that is the most surprising thing about my brother's death, is how lonely I felt. Because we didn't live, in the same city or town or anything, but when he died, there was this loneliness that weighed on me, because it was experiences that only he and I had. No one else grew up in the house. There are stories that only he and I could tell. And that was the most surprising thing, was how lonely I felt. Surrounded by people, surrounded by my husband, my kids. I have amazing friends, and, surrounded by all these people. My mom and dad are still here, and I was so lonely. And I never knew he was such a big part of who I was until he passed.
It's like you've got all these inside jokes, but nobody mm-hmm. else knows them now.
Nobody else knows about them. Nobody else experienced even going to visit my mom at Christmas in a hospital. Nobody else went through that but me and him. And so when he passed, it was very lonely. And I do feel like an only child now. Like, I feel like it's just me, and my brother didn't have any kids. I don't have any nieces or nephews. So the only memories, that I have that I can look around. It's just things that, I remember or my mom and dad might talk about, but there's things that only him and I experienced.
So in the whole process of marriage, I know that they talk about grief being like one of the things that you have to go through. It's one of those pillars, like, okay, my marriage can like make it through it. Would you consider like the losses that y'all have experienced as one of those like highs and lows that y'all have been able to overcome?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that we're locked in.
Yeah.
We're locked in. Anytime you go through, so you know, my father-in-law Monte lost his dad. About 18 months later, I lost my brother. About 4 weeks later, he lost his mom. So yeah, we're locked in. It's like when you go through something like that, and I'm grieving, he's grieving, he's trying to help me, I'm trying to help him, we're trying to help the kids. But I think one thing about death, man, is it makes life so much sweeter.
Yeah.
It does. It's like you start to just appreciate like the mundane. That's why, when I was telling you, like, baby, them dishes, that laundry, after all of this that we done got to, all of this
is gonna be in the sink.
They're gonna be in the sink. I'm about to watch this movie with my babies.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be fussing all the time. It just makes those kind of things so much more irrelevant when you've not only survived, but like, man, you come out on the other side better. And we've come out better.
Yeah.
Like our marriage has come out better. It's so much sweeter.
Now you said that y'all met online. Do you ever call each other by y'all's usernames that y'all used online?
If we're picking.
Okay.
If we're picking. Like we might like reminisce and be like, yeah, because he was Taylo and I was Mirage 96.
96.
So corny.
Is that when you graduated high school or something?
That is when I crossed over in my sorority.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. I was wondering why the 96 was significant. That is funny to me.
Yeah.
I remember another big hurdle that y'all went through was when you opened the car dealership.
Oh, that was such a hot mess. Oh my goodness. It was a hot mess.
So your husband comes home one day. And he's got this wonderful, beautiful idea.
Yes.
And he's like, babe,
we're going to open a car lot.
Whole car lot.
Whole car lots.
Yeah. And you quit your job.
Sure did.
Why you quit your job?
So this is what I said. Right. He will never say that I didn't support him.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're locked and loaded. One thing about my husband, I am blessed. He will work. He'll work. So, we had the car lot. It was a complete hot mess. But I left my job. Now, it was an expensive hot mess, though. Are you talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars hot mess? But
hundreds of thousands.
We opened the car lot. I was still working full time. He was working full time. He was trying to get it going, and I saw him struggling. And I'm like, look, I'm going to have to come off this job because I'm not about to let you fail, and I'm not about to let, all of this that we've invested in it. So I left my job. Now, the funny thing is, my mother-in-law, who has passed, was like, I know y'all not about to open no car lot. She all but called us stupid for opening it because she's like, everybody has a car lot. And we're like, you're just being negative. We're thinking that she was being she was probably being prophetic. Because we shouldn't have opened it.
Let me tell you, a lot of people got blessed from that car lot, okay? I
They
still
did.
see Edwards Automotive stickers
They
driving
did.
down the highway.
But I'm telling you, God is the way he works. He's like, all right, y'all want to do this. I'm going to let y'all bless people, but y'all shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
And so we really did. There were a lot of people that were blessed by it. People that helped us, invested in it. They, were able to make money off of it. We just didn't make any money, which was crazy. But, yeah. So it was one of those things that I'm like, look, sink or swim. We gonna do this together.
Now, how many kids did y'all have at the time when y'all opened the car lot?
I had just had my baby Yemi, so we had 3 kids, all of them under the age of 4. I'm literally nursing.
How old was the baby?
Yemi was born. She was months old when we opened. She was born in September. We opened the car lot in March. Yeah,
And you quit your job to support your husband.
I sure did.
Baby, that is love.
Baby, I guess that's what you call it.
Yeah, that's love. That is dedication, and that's some support right there. Cause,
Oh, it is. It is. I wanted him to know that if he went big, that I had his back. And sink or swim, we were going to do this thing together.
Yeah.
And we sunk. And we sunk together.
At what point did you know y'all were sinking?
So we had a lot of stuff go wrong. Like
Okay.
it was almost like we just did not get the signs. Like we would have cars that we would sell. When we weren't like the shady salespeople either. We would like people would come and buy a car and they'd be like, oh, my transmission isn't working. We'll get your transmission fixed. And so it was just the craziest stuff. We had a car stolen from us. We had the last straw was literally we had somebody come and steal a car. When I tell you it was crazy up there. We had the last straw was we had a guy come and work on a vehicle for us. And he fixed the vehicle, and we had a young girl. She might have been like 17, 18. Her mom bought her this car. It was like a $5,000 car, not, anything, but it was like her first car. The car explodes. She's not in it.
Oh, thank God.
She is not. Let me tell you though, she calls me. I'm at the car lot. She calls me and she's like, Miss Africa, my car is really hot. And I'm like, pull over on the side and get out of the car. So I'm like on the phone with her. She gets out of the car. When she gets out of the car explodes.
Oh my God.
And it's fire. I mean, like it burns completely. So we're rushing up the highway. When we get there, I'm so like upset. And I told Monte, I said, God, we got to get out of this. Like, I can't do this anymore. We were already so in debt. My husband, at the time, I think for like a whole year, he was working at the car lot. He had a full-time job and a part-time job.
Because you had quit.
Because I had quit. So I think in a year he had 5 days where he did not go to the car lot or go to work. In an entire year, 365 days, he had 5 days off. And it was just like we just had to let it go. I mean, now I prayed. I was anointing cars with oil. I was, walking through speaking tongues and doing all of that. And God was like, when you going to listen to me and close this? Yeah.
Maybe the speaking in tongues is what made her call you to get out the car.
I don't know. I pray. Like that really was like, yeah. That was a pick because I don't know what I would have done if that child would have been really hurt.
Yeah.
So all we lost was a car, and we didn't lose the teenager, so that was good. But everything else, and coming out of that was a complete mess. We were hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Are y'all still hundreds of thousands?
Not
of dollars?
still, thank the Lord.
Okay.
But you're talking about it's been. Let me see. It's 2018 is when
I was
we
like,
closed.
this was pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID, so 2018.
So it's taking y'all 6 years.
Yeah, to get back on our feet.
Y'all paid hundreds of thousands
We
back?
had to pay hundreds of thousands. We had to pay. I mean, it was to the point where like it was just tight. And during that, so you remember when your dad was doing like the 5 a.m. prayer
At the church.
At the church. I don't even know how I was going to that, but I would like literally strap Yemi and go to the 5 a.m. prayer. And I remember he was talking about like the gift of faith. And I'm like, okay, that's what I want. I want the gift of faith. So I prayed to God for the gift of faith. And I think from the time we closed that dealership to now, God walked me through all of these years, all of the losses. It's been, we're just coming out of a season where, we just in every area, finances, death, just everything was just dying around us. And, you know, during that season, though, that's when God built my faith.
Yeah.
Can't nobody tell me what God can't do. I remember, we had gotten to a point where we had 3 bank accounts. All of them were in the negative. All of our accounts were in the negative. And, we got babies to feed. And I was in Walmart, and we had like a little bit of cash, so I'm getting groceries. And there was a coin on the ground. And I walked by, and God said, you are not in a position where you can walk by a coin on the ground. So I picked up the coin, and he was like, no, go find all the coins in your house. And I remember he literally had me sweep through my house, pennies, quarters, nickels, dimes, and in that, it was like I ended up finding like $100-something. And at that time, when, everything is, all your bank accounts are in the negative, my husband's busting his butt working, God was just like, I got you. In all of that, we should have lost our house. We should have lost our vehicles. We should have lost everything. But God was so good, that the stuff that we lost, everything was replaceable. My kids never went without food. Our lights never got cut off. We remained in our same home. We still have our same home. But God provided, and He used people to bless us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a hot mess. And in all of that, then God was like, homeschool your kids. So I didn't even go back to work. So I'm not actually contributing financially to the household. I got a whole degree. I got a whole career I could go back to. But God had me.
Because you were like a marketing director or something.
I was a director of development. Yeah.
Goodness.
I had, over 15 years experience of being, in leadership positions. And God told me, yeah, I need you to lead at home and lead these 3. And that's what I've been doing. So
I'd have been like, Lord, you sure? Because I could do that at nighttime and get a job during the day.
Yep. And the thing is, too, when you're, one of the things about marriage is you got to be on one accord. Yeah. So if my husband was going to be like, well, no, babe, I need you to make ends meet. But, he worked 2 jobs, and he was like, no, you stay at home with the kids. I feel like that's what you need to do. And so he worked a little bit. Shout out to my husband. Because he worked and he took care of his family, and his grind is what, got us through. Yeah.
So I have a question for all the married ladies out there.
Yes, Lord.
Whose husbands are visionaries and they have all these grand dreams and ideas and schemes sometimes. How did you, just the first part of the question, how did you get on board, be okay with submitting to his vision when you could see it probably wasn't a good idea before you ever started?
Here's the thing, what I've learned is just because I think it's not a good idea doesn't mean it's not a good idea. And I really had to trust him to be the head. And I'm like, wherever you lead us, now it's going to be on you. But I got on board to, even the areas where I think that he might fail, I tried to undergird him. You got to undergird him. Because if I don't believe in him, who will? If I don't push him, who will? If I'm not the one to support him, then who will? I'm his helpmeet.
Yeah.
Who else is going to do that? So if I have a visionary It might not, the first thing might not work out, but the second or third thing might. But if I kill his spirit on the first one, he might not try the second or third. So that was my thing. I don't want him looking for nobody else, telling him, you go ahead, you can do this, you smart. He's gonna hear it from home.
That's good.
Yeah.
So on the back end, because you said, like y'all were hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, how do us wives out here in these streets, how do we resist the urge to be upset, like to hold on after it explodes, literally and figuratively?
Yeah. I think you have to have wise people around you, because sometimes you can't see, you can't see the forest for the trees. All you see is what's right in front of you. So I had to have people that would talk sense to me. I had to have people to be like, why are you mad at that man and he working as hard as he is? Like, you have to have a village, and you have to let people in. And I think for a lot of times that's what got me together, so that I didn't damage my husband. Because if you're the head and something that you chose to do doesn't go right, then that you already have a lot of pressure on you. Yeah. Looking back, I'm like, he had a wife, he had kids he needed to take care of, he had a mortgage, he had car payments. What do I look like beating him up and he's already down? Because I'm mad, because I'm upset. That it wouldn't have helped my family. I always like, I'm team Edwards. And sometimes team Edwards, you got to look at the whole team, not just how you're feeling. Because he didn't do any of that to hurt me. He didn't do anything. He did that because he wanted to create a better life for me and for our family, for me and my kids. Can't be mad at that. Might not have worked out, but I can't be mad at that. And now he knows he has a wife that, baby, you can try again. You want to build a better house for me. You want to make sure that I have my kids are taken care of. Try again. And that's what you do.
Yeah.
Get out your feelings.
Get out your feelings.
Yeah, get out your feelings.
Stab me in the heart, man. I don't know if y'all can hear, but my husband over there saying, get her. It's okay. You got to come sleep in bed with me tonight. Just remember that. But that was so good.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was good for all of us. Okay, so you need to listen.
Yeah.
When she talks, she's very wise.
Because I had a lot of losses.
Yeah.
I learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had to just give one piece of advice from anything that we talked about to anybody watching, whether that's from like the marriage perspective or grief or parenting or mental health or anything, what would be your one piece of advice that you would want to leave the people with?
Know God and make him known in every situation. In every situation, whether it's grief, if I pursue what God says about, how to grieve or death or, then God's going to show up in that. And then I need to make him known. Like, just by being, by exhibiting who he is, who he's been, by sharing with people, by encouraging, by supporting. If I know him and then my mission is to make him known, when my husband falls, I know how to be a wife and I know how to extend God's love to him. When I'm raising my children, if I know God first, then I know how to be, the mother that I need to be. I know how to individualize, my care for each child. And while I know that, I'm going to make him known by showing love, by showing grace, by showing mercy. That's really been my thing that I've come to. It's like, God, if I know you and I make you known, it doesn't matter what platform I'm on. It doesn't matter how many people. As long as I'm in your will, I'm making sure I'm spending time with you. And then I'm making sure that I'm an example to the people around me of what you've done for me. Not that I'm perfect, but in my imperfection, man, God, look what you've done. I think that's the thing. I think sometimes we get it wrong as Christians that we have to live this perfect life. And I'm coming to that realization. It's in my imperfections that you see God's grace. You know, it's in my faults and the fact that, we had so many losses, but we're still winning. Man, God is good. God is good. We've had some, hurtful things, but we're healed. We're not brokenhearted. So that's at the end of the day, if you do that, if you know God, and whatever area in your life you try to make him known, man, that's it. I think that's the secret sauce.
With your kids, what are some of the things that you've kind of put in place to make sure that they don't go through a lot of the things that you had to go through as a kid?
All three of my kids are different. The ones at home, we have three at home. They're all different. And so I try to make sure that I'm aware of how they receive love, how they respond to correction, because they're all three different. I try to make sure that they feel that they always feel loved.
But do you ever feel like those things, like, I remember getting married to my husband and I'd be like, I know I might have some of them same tendencies. You know what I'm saying? Do you ever feel those tendencies rise up that you're like, I never wanted to be like that?
Oh, for sure.
And yet I'm turning into that anyway. So
sure.
That's the question. How do you make sure like that you don't project those things onto them?
I think this is where I've learned to give myself grace, because it does happen, right? And I try to make sure that if I do, that I recognize it. Like, I can tell when I'm being extra hard. I can tell when I'm not being kind, when I'm not being nice. Just the other day, one of my daughters, I was getting onto her and I felt her break. Like, I felt her spirit break. And I saw it and I stopped and I had to pause, and stop myself. Because when you go through like the childhood that I went through, I know that look because I used to look like that. I know that feeling and I could tell that, I had said something that hurt her. So I had to pause. I had to come over. I had to hug her. I had to reassure her. And I think that's some of the things that I didn't receive. Like, I didn't receive reassurance that if you're not perfect, it's okay.
That, but also just because you're correcting me because you're trying to make me better. Yes, like, you have good intentions, but it's coming across and it's still breaking a part of me. And that's something I don't think that a lot of people in general, like, they're like, well, they just need to know the truth. They need to, like, hear it how it is. But there's always a way to, like, say things in a caring and, like, way. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm going to tell you this, your kids will tell on you.
Yeah.
Your kids will tell on you because you'll see how they'll start to talk to one another. And so when I start seeing them being really hard and harsh, I'm like, is that what I sound like to them? Because they're mimicking, and my kids for sure are mimicking because they're at home all the time. So when I start to see behaviors that, like, I'm trying to correct, I'm like, oh, there might be something that I need to correct. So your kids will tell on you how they behave. It's going to be a reflection of how you act too.
Yeah, and if you have an only child, they're typically going to do it with, like, a sibling or a friend or, like, somebody else that's younger than them that they feel like they have dominance over.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wild.
It's crazy.
In marriage specifically, for us wives out there, who be struggling. Okay.
Look, that struggle bus is real.
How do we get ahead of the vision, right? Because we're not visionaries. We're not. So how do we get on board? Like, because you said, like, if you kill the first one, they'll never get to the second or third one. Or they're going to go out there and find somebody who will get on board. Mm-hmm. So like, give us some practical steps, okay? The man of God come home, and he say, I want to get a $2,000 a month studio, okay? And you 8 months pregnant. Mm-hmm. So give us, this is just a hypothetical. Give us the steps to not just crush the vision, but to say, like, okay, I'm on board, but to make him say, like, she's at least willing to kind of be on board. It's not what I want to do fully, but how can they show that they're on board with the vision without compromising, like, full financial security?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my thing is, if I see it, I try to come up with solutions to the problems that I already see, right? So if my husband's like, hey, I want to open a car dealership. All right. I'm going to go with you to find the lot. I'm going to look for, places where the rent might be here or there. I'm going to learn about the car. Like, I dove all the way in. If this is what you're going to do, because here's the thing. My husband is going to do it.
Regardless.
My husband is going to do it. So it's like, okay, the options that I have, number one, I can't control him. Mm-hmm. I don't want a man that I can control. So I can't control him where he's not going to do it. But do I want to influence the decisions that he makes? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I want to influence them in a healthy way that supports it.
Not manipulative.
No. But I want to say, okay, well, let's think about this. Like, I want to give him ideas to help him. And a lot of times, he'll be like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that, So if he's out there, if he's going to do it anyway, it's better that I support him, because I have skills, I have insight to things that he doesn't have, where he has vision that I don't have. Like, if God created me as a helpmeet, then he's instilled the tools in me to help him. But if I'm going to sit back, then our family as a whole is going to suffer. If I sit back and I don't use those skills and those tools to help my husband, then what are they good for? To go build my own business over here? To do
or
something. Or
somebody else's.
Yeah, or build somebody else's. Why would I work harder, for somebody that's getting me a paycheck, that if they fire me today, they're going to replace me tomorrow?
Where is the audience? Y'all not clapping.
You got some clap sounds on your board over there?
I might add some claps on there. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, but that's real, though.
It is.
And why would I work harder for them than I do for a vision, for a man that loves me, that takes care of me?
You know what it is? I think it's that security, right? Mm-hmm. Because we crave that stability.
We do.
We crave that security, especially when a lot of us grew up in like somewhat chaotic households. Mm-hmm. It just all stems back to that. So there's a part of you that's like, like, I'm not going to let go of this steady paycheck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And there's a part of you that wants to be selfish that's like, okay, I got this that I'm doing, and then I have all of the other things that actually take care of our household. And there is a temptation to fall back.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome that? Basically, selfishness.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's not only selfishness, it's pride. It's pride because you think you know better than your husband.
Okay, I'm gonna turn the other cheek too.
It is, and that's what I had to come through. It's like, okay, I had the better idea. And that wasn't always true, and it's not always true. And one thing I've learned, if he's going to be the leader, I want him to be, this great husband and this and that. Well, part of him being a great husband is having a wife that allows him to lead.
Because he not a leader if you not following.
If you're not following, or if you always complaining, or you're always, bucking, what he has to say,
Help me,
then,
Jesus.
And there's time for good conversation. There's time for that. But at the end of the day, he's responsible for taking care of my family. At the end of the day, that is not my responsibility. I can help and I can be a helpmate. I'm not saying that you don't have a job.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you don't contribute financially to your home, because I picked up a job. But at the end of the day, if that mortgage doesn't get paid, that's on Monte. That's his responsibility. And I have to allow, if I don't make space for him to be the leader, to be the head, to feel the burden of what it takes to be a family, then that's simple, strength training. If you don't feel the resistance, you'll never get stronger. So you have to allow them to do that, and know that you're going to support them. Like, this one thing Monte knows, boo, I got your back. He knows, babe, I have your back.
Yeah. Listen, Bramante, when you found your wife, you found a good thing.
He did. I agree with that.
He found a good thing.
Oh, goodness, he did.
Well, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
You've been amazing.
Love you, Ish.
If, for those of y'all who don't know, Yaf was my matron of honor. And y'all could tell why, okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
I was so touched.
Yes. Even though you let your kids eat all my snacks, but they did. They ate them all. But I want to pray. I just feel led to pray for the wives out there who are struggling to really get on board, to forgive, who might be harboring, that bitterness in their heart for things not going the way that they assumed that they should go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for who you are. I thank you for this conversation. I thank you that you predestined this conversation to reach the wife that's listening to this right now. I ask that you would do what only you can do, because God, only you are a healer. Would you begin to work those things out in her heart? Begin to uproot all of the bitterness in her heart, the unforgiveness in her heart towards her parents, towards her spouse, towards her children, towards her friends, whomever it is that she is struggling with unforgiveness. And Father, I pray that you would begin to heal, so that you ultimately can restore, so that you ultimately can be glorified in the situation. I thank you, Father, that you would allow your healing water, your living water, to begin to permeate every aspect of them, to knock out all areas of bitterness from her heart. And I thank you that you even heal her memories now to make them sweet. And it's in Jesus' mighty name that we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
I love you. Thank
Love
you for joining
too.
me.
Thank you for having me.